Am I on? Am I on? Not yet? Was. Yeah, Felice. Yeah, good morning. Ooh, I'm so excited. My voice is a little quivery because I'm just so excited. I can't shake this word, purpose. So, Pastor Chuck and Mary Beth asked me a couple weeks ago, um, and I was like, "Oh, I'll get back to you, and I'll pray about it." That's your typical response, right? Oh, I'll pray about it. You want to join hospitality? Okay, I'll pray about it. You want to greet? Okay, I'll pray about it. No, just do it. Because what I'm going to talk about today is purpose, because God designed you with things inside of your heart. So we're going to go through a little bit of a guide today to say and come in alignment with what God created you to do. So if you're passionate about certain things, He already put that there before you were made in your mother's womb. Right? Okay. How we doing, Ash? Go ahead. Go back. There we go. So for my job in real life? In my, this is real life. Oh, thank you, Jesus. I do a lot of presentations and I do a lot of PowerPoints. I'm like, I got to title this thing. Let's have some fun. So one thing that God gave me was purpose, a practical guide to identifying your God-given value and destiny. So I can't shake purpose. We're all called to have many purposes, but He's really designed us to do multiple things, and I'm really, really excited. Wrong way. There we go. All right, why talk about it? So I got seven things. Discover why God made us. Be the hands and, I said free, feet, it's supposed to be feet. Be the hands and feet of Jesus. Free. Yeah, we are free, right?
Yeah, we are. Either way.
Walk in that freedom, right? There we go. Secure our identity in the Creator. So I watched this show on Amazon Prime. I don't do adventure stuff. That's why I themed it adventure. I don't go camping. I'm not that type of person. But there's this show called Alone. And it's 10 men or women. You know what it is? Okay. So it's 10 men or women that get chosen that are like survivalists. Yeah. And they bring you to Vancouver Island, drop you off, and they leave you alone. And you are literally miles away from the 9 other people. The goal is to last the longest, and you get $500,000. So that was to keep you there. But one thing that was interesting, there was 2 seasons about it. And I was like, how do these people do this? And there was one gentleman on there that he was a pastor. And he stepped away from being a pastor, and he's like, oh, I can do this. I lived in Brazil or whatever. I did mission work. I can do this. It never failed. By day 30, people were like, you're not meant to be alone. And they had to have a camera with them, so it recorded their thoughts every day. We're not designed to be alone. We're designed to be with each other. We're designed to be called by God and go into our calling, right? So it's to inspire and change the culture around us. So we are supposed to say, hey, culture, I'm here, Jesus, and we're supposed to change it, right? Yep. So we're not supposed to come into an alignment with what culture says we're supposed to do. Right. We're supposed to come into alignment with what God says we're supposed to do, right? That can be without words. That can be acts of service. It can be love, right? And you can express love with a hug, high five, right, Mars? Amen. Amen. So align ourselves with God's plan for our life. Sometimes stuff will come at you and throw you off track, okay? So I want to hone in on that and align ourselves with what God has to say for our lives. Preach the gospel. That can mean going to a grocery store and God gives you a prophetic word and it means you're encouraging somebody, right? Doesn't necessarily have to mean God says we're all preachers and you have to stand up front. Ashley doesn't like public speaking. We're not going to drag Ashley up there. She's like, no. I might drag her up. She'll listen to her big sister. And be intentional. So intentional to me means thinking before I speak, being intentional with my words, understanding, putting yourself in someone else's shoes, and empathizing and having compassion with them, right? So how do we define our purpose? And I kind of like this image because it's a compass. We have the freedom to go anywhere we want, but God's our true north, right? He's our deciding factor in how we align with him, right? So I kind of like that picture. So I went to Webster's dictionary. So it's the reason for which something is done or created, or for which something exists. We exist today because we have purpose. We exist because God designed us. Think about that. That's pretty powerful. I know that that may seem like mediocre or something, but when I was going through this journey, I'm preaching to myself here. So if I point, I'm very animated too. So if I point, I'm pointing at myself. We exist because God said so, and we have purpose. So I'm also goal-oriented. So I thought that was interesting how Webster's dictionary said a goal, it's an aim, it's a result. It's a person's sense of determination or resolve. Something you feel settled inside your spirit that it's good, right? One's intention or objective. So being intentional. So back to goal, and we'll talk about that towards the end. I have a funny story. So I go grocery shopping with my sister, and we'll take turns picking each other up. She drives a Standard, so sometimes she's like, my knee hurts, can you drive your automatic? So I'm like, okay. Well, this one time she drove, and we jumped in the car, and I had all my, all those plastic bags are going away now for New York State. So I've got all my reusable bags, and we jump in the car, and I'm like, okay, so my goal is, and she's like, wait a minute, hang on a second. You always say my goal is, or my goal today. And I'm like, I didn't realize that I say that all the time. And I really think that God wants us to be goal-oriented. We need to be intentional with what we're doing. And you can apply this to your own personal life. So if it's, I'm going to lose 5 pounds by the end of the year, that's a goal. And we're going to practice that today too. If your goal is to be dive more into the prophetic, surround yourself with people that are prophetic. Make that a goal. If your goal is to receive healing, get around people that have a healing ministry, or sit in the presence of God and go after it, right? So, what does God say about us? So I don't know if I have one for everyone, maybe every other. So I kind of wrote up, you can take this home, I can make more copies. So I have this scripture. So this was a little bit about the journey kind of God walked me through, and he said, apply this to your life, Jenelle. So I kind of wrote it out for you. So it's a scripture and study, and then I wrote down some theme and details that God gave me. So this is for you to take home. I can get you more copies. I'm very tactile, so I like to have stuff hanging up in a Post-it note. I like to have written outlines. So for those that like to be organized like that, woohoo! You can join my club. And we'll get more copies for you. So if you have your Bible, I'm using the Passion Translation. Of course, right? I feel like it's so meaty and just pierces you a little bit. So in Ephesians 1, so when I was a kid, I remember like looking at the New Testament when I was little. I've been saved since I'm 34, for 30 years, forever. I wasn't a PK, but I felt like a pastor's kid because I was just always in church. So I just remember when I was a kid, maybe 8, 9 years old, and being at Christian school, and someone saying, well, let's talk about Ephesians. Let's talk about the New Testament. And when I was reading it again, I realized the Lord was talking to me when I was little. And it's all about identity. And that was my journey through this process. So What does God say about us? Your identity is in him. So we are God's inheritance. We're entitled to everything in his kingdom. We carry total well-being inside of us. That's the Passion Translation. Total well-being. Sickness has to go. That's just a road bump in the road, right? Sickness has to go. I honestly believe that. My faith has risen so much about that. Total well-being. That means, there's this book I'm reading. It's a secular book for work, but it talks about mental well-being, physical well-being, emotional, and it talks about all this stuff. But the principles kind of like make sense. But God says total well-being. What does he say about you? If you're struggling with thoughts that don't make sense, God can heal you with that. And if that means bringing in a doctor, if it means bringing in someone that can help you navigate that, that's okay. There's no condemnation in that. If it's physical well-being, what things do you have to do to receive healing, right? We have eternal grace. So I thought this was interesting. A lot of the prophets and apostles in the New Testament, it was talking about how kind of if you veer off track from your destiny or veer off track from your purpose, God's not there with a javelin or a guillotine ready to chop your hand off or something. He's not there to put condemnation on you or just say, oh, you're done, you're to the side. You still have purpose, and he gives you eternal grace. You were born with it. So if you get off track, you just go back into the time with him, and there's that grace there again. You're ordained to do the works of his kingdom through holy living. I might touch on something here. One thing that absolutely gets me annoyed in culture today is that this church idea that we need to have one foot in the world and one foot in the church. I'm in that millennial generation. I think it applies to all different generations. It just seems to be more hyped now because it's social media. It's more noticeable. We're more visual. But that idea of holy living, that means a righteous living. You were born with that when God put you in your mother's womb. We got to go back to it. That means it can be anywhere from, foul language to things we're watching online. It can mean righteous living of reading the Word every day, or spending time with Him, and getting that foot out of what culture says and stick it back in the church. We're adopted as delightful children. So I laughed at that because the first thing I remember was, Jenelle, you're just such a strong-willed child. My mother telling me that when I was little. You're so strong-willed. I was very headstrong. I was very goal-oriented. So the Lord kind of reminded me of that in a very funny way, because we are his delightful children. We're all his children, right? And he delights on us. He loves us. And we're stamped with the seal of promise. Sonship. Yeah, we're women, but we're sons of God, right? That's our identity. He's the king. We are all in that realm. We're all sons. And we're signed, sealed, and delivered. And I'm like thinking, what was that song? Signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. So signed, sealed, and delivered to the world. So all this stuff that's going on in our personal lives, I'm right there. Like that comedian, she had all that jumble. I was like, wow, that's such a woman. That's me. You got all that stuff going on. We got to be intentional with our purpose. Set that aside and say, I'm called to do this. Yep. I'm called to do this. Right. I'm called to do this, and I'm going to do it to the best that I can because God's inside of me and with me.
Amen.
Right?
That's good. Amen.
Because you're supposed to go out and replicate that. We're supposed to be disciples.
That's right.
That doesn't, just because you don't have a title, I don't have a title. I'm Jenelle. I'm just Jenelle. God made me, right?
That's right.
You can be a disciple and go out and preach the gospel.
Amen.
You can go out and heal people.
Yep.
God said you can.
Yep.
There's no limitation. Yep. There might be a limitation here.
Amen.
I'm talking to myself. Just saying. Because I had to battle with that. Because society tells it, we all do. Society tells you got to have this qualification, got to have this. You got to have that. Like right now, I'm in school for a master's degree. It's like I just want to get it out of the way. I may work in an environment that says that you have to have a master's degree to be anything. I don't care. That's my mentality. God already qualified me, so I'm going to keep going,
That's
right? That applies to all of us. My favorite verse. Anybody like this verse?
I love this verse. This is a great verse.
Great verse. So it's a reminder. So this is the Amplified version. For I know the plans and thoughts that I have towards you, says the Lord. Plans for peace and there's well-being again. Plans and well-being, peace and well-being, not for disaster, to give you a future and a hope. You were born with hope. You were born with peace. You were born with righteousness. So it's just getting back on track and going back to our identity. Right? Okay. I put that up there. Are you focused on his promises? A lot of times world can throw stuff at you and you can veer off that track. So there's that saying, whatever you're focused on becomes, it empowers. Whatever you focus on, you empower. So if you're taking that time to focus, like this week before coming today, I had a really hard week. The enemy was just like, bat me around a little bit. Emotions were up here. I was tired, drank too much espresso, and whatever I was focused on, I was empowering, and it was becoming this big, big, big thing. So we have to go back to what God says, what the Word says, okay, and get back on track. Align ourselves and focus on His promises, because He's full of promises, right? Yeah. All right, so how do we discover our purpose? How can we align with what God says about us? So this kind of follows. I got all the scriptures on that paper you can go home with. So I broke it down into 4 categories. So read the word. So I'm just going to read this for you. Let's see here. So Psalm 139:13. You formed my innermost being, shaping my delicate inside and my intricate outside, and wove them all together in my mother's womb. That's the Passion Translation. Ephesians 4:7, and he has generously given each one of us supernatural grace. You were born with it again. According to the size of the gift of Christ. Limitless. You are limitless. Colossians 3:1-2. So Christ's resurrection is your resurrection too. This is why we are to yearn for all that is above, for that's where Christ sits enthroned at the place of all power, honor, and authority. And feast on all the treasures of the heavenly realm and fill your thoughts with heavenly realities and not with the distractions of the natural realm. That's where things can come up and trigger your emotions to tell you you're not qualified, to tell you that you're not gifted enough, to tell you to come against any part of your identity, right? This is the year of the voice for women in the Jewish calendar. I'm not a feminist at all. A lot of the world I work in or whatever will be feminist related. There's no such thing as that. We work alongside men because culture is going to tell you women are better. No, we're equal. God made us different, but we're equal. So we're supposed to come alongside each other. Even women talking with other women. No one is higher than each other. Doesn't matter about title or anything, right?
That's so good. Amen.
So don't listen to the natural realm, the different distractions. If you got to turn off that news station, turn it off. You got to shut down social media or Facebook because someone has an opinion about something that's not a godly perspective. Shut it off. It's going to get you off track. It's going to get you off track for what your purpose is in life, right? So Romans 8:29-30. So this is talking about spending time in the Word of God. Those songs that Mary Beth picked out was about God calling you back to your first love. He absolutely loves you, and he's so jealous of your time. He wants so much time with you. If that means singing in the shower, I sing in the shower, if it means spending a half hour at the end of your day decompressing with the Lord after work if you're working, or if it means doing laundry at the laundromat for 10 minutes, you're reading the Word, and then you happen to make a friend and preach to them, sure. So Romans 8:29-30 is a glorious destiny, for he knew all about us before we were born, and he destined us from the beginning to share the lines of his Son. We're royalty.
Amen.
This means the Son is the oldest among a vast family of brothers and sisters who will become just like him. Having determined our destiny ahead of time, he already had a plan for you. He called us to himself and transferred his perfect righteousness to everyone he called. And those who possess his perfect righteousness, he co-glorified with his Son.
Amen.
Co-rulers, co-heirs.
Amen.
What's stopping us? Shouldn't be anything.
Thank you, Jesus.
Amen. Be in community. So this really hit home for me. I don't know why. I think this is a little bit prophetic. So I had to write it down yesterday. So I heard God calling people back to his community and leaving a land of isolation. Your healing is in community. So isolation, I talked about that show Alone that I was watching. They are completely isolated. Their best friend is a tree. Good luck with that. Right? It's so true. They're talking to a chipmunk that they're going to eat in 5 seconds because they're so hungry. Right? This gets me riled up because a lot of times society will compare you. Comparison is not of God.
That's right.
Okay? So you are called to not be in isolation.
Yep. That's right.
That means if there's a little bit of social anxiety, like you can't be around people, ask God to talk to you about that. And get your butt in church. Get your butt around people that are going to encourage you. Because your destiny is dependent on somebody else in that community. They need you as well. So don't listen to the lies of the enemy that tell you, oh, you're better off by yourself. So he's a liar, exactly. Hebrews 10:25. This is not the time to pull away and neglect meeting together, as some have formed the habit of doing, because we need each other. In fact, we should come together even more frequently, eager to encourage and urge each other onward as we anticipate that day dawning. So neglect here, when the Passion Translation breaks it down, is discouraged, and it meant abandoned. God did not abandon you, so why are you sitting in isolation?
Come on. That's right.
That can mean isolation of thoughts. It can be physical isolation. And you know what? It's not about once you get into community, you're going to be found out. Oh, you're doing something, your sinful nature. No, that's not what it's about. That's mediocre stuff. It's getting back into community and getting your full healing, your full well-being, the full circle of what God has for you. And if that means sitting with someone in leadership or sitting with a counselor, someone that you spend time with on a confidential level, do it. Okay? Talk with leadership. So Proverbs 11:14, people lose their way without wise leadership, but a nation succeeds and stands in victory when it has many good counselors to guide it. You are strengthened in relationship with your leadership. I'll specifically reference like church environment, growing up in the church. The leaders that are put in place, God has ordained authority through them. All authority runs from the head of God. They are there for a reason. They need to act out their calling and purpose in life by you also working with them and co-laboring. That doesn't mean you're going to go to leadership in church or be with leaders in your life and the fear of something's going to be exposed or something. It's supposed to be a relationship. It's supposed to be interwoven together. So that, going to leadership and talking to someone in confidence, getting healing, going through sozo healing or going through the courts and things like that, that'll help black out all those mental isolation things, and that will bring you back into a relationship with leadership.
Thank you, Lord.
because they have to live out their calling too, because we're supposed to work together. Proverbs 20:28. So good leadership is built on love and truth, for kindness and integrity are what keep leaders in their position of trust. Know them by their fruits. If you're smelling a rotten fruit, be informed and you decide what you want to do with it. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But if you smell a rotten fruit, that also applies to what are you listening to? What preacher are you aligning yourself with? There's a lot of voices out there. You should only be listening to God, your church leadership, and maybe a close confidant or family. Think of the voices that come at you. Think of an onion. Go to that core onion. It says in his word, I was looking through, I think it was Psalms, actually Proverbs, because Proverbs in the Passion Translation, it's just like wisdom. It's amazing. Holy mackerel. And it says, whatever you give validation to or voice to can speak into your spirit. Don't let that root some things inside your heart that turn you away from the church, that put you in isolation. Make sure you are particular and you ask God for discernment what type of voices need to be speaking into your life. Because we're at a point where it's coming towards the end times. That's my opinion. We're coming to an apostolic era where God is setting some leaders in place. What voices are we allowing to dictate our identity and our purpose? That was Proverbs 20? Yes. Okay, so Proverbs 24:4. Because of their skilled leadership, the hearts of people are filled with the treasures of wisdom and the pleasures of spiritual wealth. So all my life growing up, I was always told, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a leader, you're a firstborn. I was bossy. I told my sister what to do. It was just the two of us. She's got more stories than I can count. But the one thing that I learned was learn to follow to lead.
Yes, that's right.
Learn to follow to lead.
That's right.
If God's calling you to leadership, learn to follow first. It's a hard road. I do it at work and I do it at home. Because I like to tell my husband what to do. And he loves me anyway, so he'll just let me do it. He's also a little bit younger than me, so I really think I can tell him what to do, but, you got to co-labor together. Got to work together. Talk to myself. I point into the ceiling, talk to myself. Accountability partner. That can be scary, but it's good for you, okay? God says so. It's good for you. He says so. So Proverbs 25:10, to gain the reputation for being one who portrays the confidence of a friend. He sticks closer than a brother, right? So portrays the confidence of a friend. This is talking about your character. Having a character of a friend. Having that confidence in somebody else, or they can have in you. And Proverbs 27:10, so never give up on a friend or abandon a friend of your father, for in the day of your brokenness you won't have to run to a relative for help. A friend nearby is better than a relative far away. Speaking of reproach and accountability in times of challenges, don't give up on helping others grow. You're not meant for isolation. You're meant to co-labor, and you're meant to grow. Your character, maturity, anything. You're meant to grow. And I think a lot of times, a lot of voices and things will tell you got to do it yourself, do it all alone. We're not meant to be alone. I don't know why I'm stuck on that. It's just God's got me on that. So these 4 things, when I was outlining this, I didn't show anyone the PowerPoint except Mary Beth, Pastor Chuck, but then I had my sister over, and she goes, oh my gosh, I was listening to this guy, Michael Todd, and he's a preacher down in Texas, right? He's so good. So good. And he spoke about this, and it was like confirmation for me, because there was a lot of stuff coming at me, this is just being real, a lot of stuff coming at me this week, and I'm like, I can't shake the word purpose. Just can't shake it. So these three things the Lord highlighted to me in my journey and spending time with him, it was reading the word, getting back to the basics. Let's talk about back to the basics. It's being community. It's talking with leadership, and it's having an accountability partner. That can be 2, 3 women, right? And having fun. I love coffee. Anybody love coffee? Barb's in the back there. Yeah. You go to Starbucks?
No,
Marcy does.
I don't like Starbucks, but I would go.
I'll get you a tea.
Steamed milk.
Steamed milk. Well, just a little bit of that. I got a new frother at home. Oh, it's so good. I never leave my couch. No more isolation. You'll all have to come over, and I'll make you a little espresso drink. I can talk about coffee all day, so you might have to walk away from me. But accountability partner, that can mean your spouse, it can mean a sister, it can mean a brother, but it means as women, we're strong. It's the year of the voice. It's women. We are supposed to step into our identity, right? I feel so strongly about that, because the world will say, you're second, you're subpar. You have 2 pastors and prophetic leadership right here that are women standing in their destiny and their purpose. These 2 are really good examples to that, right? Okay. So in my job during the week, so I teach financial education, and we have to do not really presentations, but more so facilitation. That's a whole different skill set that I'm not even all the way there yet. It's a lot of learning for me. So I wanted to throw in a call to action, because I just didn't want to stand up here and tell you about my journey with the Lord over the last couple of weeks. I wanted us to activate it, because we all have a purpose and we all have something to do, okay? And then we're going to put this into action. So identifying your purpose. Remember I talked about goals? We're going to do some goal setting. It's an act to prepare you for your purpose. So it's going back to the basics. It's saying, really, I'm going to identify these things, and I think in my heart the Lord wants me to do this, and I'm going to write it out. So I want to challenge you today. We're still in the beginning of the year. I want you to, today, you're going to break up, and you're going to pair into groups. It can be 2 or 3 women together. It can be 4, okay? And I want you to get a piece of paper, and you're going to get a pen. And you're going to sit together, and you're going to write 3 2020 goals that you want to accomplish. If it's to lose 5 pounds, if it's to experience the prophetic and get better in the prophetic, if it means you're going to join the hospitality team, or maybe you want to read 5 books this year. Maybe it's to pay off, I'm just spitballing, pay off a credit card. I mean, it can be anything, okay? You're going to write down 3 goals that you would like to accomplish. You're going to then share with your group, and we're going to put it to action. We're going to pray over each other. We're also going to encourage each other, and then we'll help the leaders in this group will help facilitate. And if it turns into a prophetic moment, however you guys see fit, I'm okay with that too. But I really wanted us to practice coming together and talking with each other, because I have the gift of gab. Anybody else, like Sandra Flack says, anybody else can talk? I think that if we come together and start small, an intimate moment, something will break out and the Holy Spirit can lead you.
Awesome job. So, if you want to break up into groups, Proud Mama back there. Sherry, Proud Mama. That was good, wasn't it?